Friends, I'm super excited about the interview today with Viv Paxinos. She's the CEO of AllBright, a women's collective, a women's business organization based in central London, but actually now global. Now listen up really carefully for the way in which she leads with courage and with kindness. And listen up to her perspectives on redefining success and on the place of women in business and in leadership. I hope you enjoy it. This is the Arable Leader Podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and we're exploring true, brave, kind, curious leadership, leading from your soul. Hey friends, welcome to the Arable Leader Podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and this is about leading from a deeper place, leading from a true, brave, kind, and curious place. And today I'm super excited to have a friend, Viv Paxinos, who is the CEO of AllBright. Hi Viv, it's great to have you with us.
Hi Karl, thank you so much for having me.
It's brilliant to have you. Viv, just tell us a little bit about AllBright to start off with. What is it? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So AllBright is a global platform that supports women in business. Our mission is to advance women in business. And we've got a learning and experience business. The business. So learning is all about leadership and development. We go into corporates and we provide an end-to-end solution about how to support women in the workplace. And then experiences is all our events. We have over 300 events throughout the year where we bring women together to connect, inspire, and learn. We reach over 10 million women around the world. And a few months ago, we acquired a leading learning and development company called Every Woman that helps us just expand our reach.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Really exciting.
Well, one of the things that I know about you is that you're inspirational and you're an incredible leader, and that's why you're on the podcast. So true, brave, kind, and curious leadership is what we're about. Leadership of character, not just about competencies, but about character. And so I'd love to ask you just some questions around that, around the true, brave, kind, curious stuff. I've done my research, Viv. You wrote an article with an absolutely brilliant quote that I'd like to dig into. It says this: as women, we must redefine ambition on our own terms, owning our drive to put ourselves out there, take risks, and reach for what we desire. Ambition fueled not by ego, but purpose, creativity, and care for our communities. Owning our ambition means tuning out societal voices urging us to shrink, to be liked, to be cautious, to blend in, squashing our dreams because they seem unrealistic or outside the norm. Mic drop. Awesome. And now that's great, but help me understand, what is the societal definition of ambition that you're seeking to redefine, and what is the new definition that you're hoping to propagate?
Gosh, I remember when I wrote that article, I was so inspired because it was at the beginning of my tenure here at AllBright, and we were conducting focus groups, and I was meeting with a lot of the women within our community, and we had a few different words that we wanted them to connect with, and almost none of them connected with the word ambition. And there was this, like their shoulders went up, or there's reaction when we use the word ambition to define, how they feel. And I just got really curious about it and wanted to understand more. And I'm really ambitious, and ambition is a word that I feel really connected with. And so from speaking to the women and spending time and through this focus group process, I really understood that they still have this negative view of ambition. And when you think like where ambition comes from, it has this negative connotation. It's power for me rather than how do I drive collective good. And I think that's carried over through time. And it's almost like that bossy term, when women are it's seen negative if women are bossy, right? And so that for me started, like, I went down to a rabbit hole of reading about where does the term ambition come from? Where did it originate? How the Romans used to use it, how they used it in medieval times, and try to understand like historical context. Yes. And then, when I looked at my ambition, when I looked at all these incredible women that I had just spent, my first 3 months getting to know, to really understand how can I really help them step into their power and connect, because that's what AllBright does. I realized that a lot of them just shrink into roles. And a lot of them say what they think is right to say. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I wanted ambition to feel positive. I wanted there to be, for me, ambition is not just about, me succeeding, but it's for everyone around me to succeed. And I often say, like, success is around everyone in our community succeeding. And that's my ambition. So what I've tried to do is flip it on its head and say, well, ambition should be one that is not, it's not just about your own goals, but it is around how do you lift others around you. And when you look at the challenges we have in the workplace, and everything is about lifting others and creating that diversity of thought, and so that's where it originated. That's where I got inspired to write the article, and I just want to inspire women to really own their ambition and not feel like it's like something negative. I think ambition meets you where you are, and it's up to you to define it. And I think it's something really positive that, we should all lean into. And imagine how great the world would be if we were all a little bit more ambitious for the environment, for our business, for all of that, right?
Okay, inspirational. Where in you does that come from? Because you clearly haven't imbibed a fear of ambition, and you have been able, because you haven't imbibed that, you kind of reframed the concept of ambition for others, and clearly other people are catching it. So where does it come from you? When I first met you, I had no idea actually where the accent came from, and I think I made a couple of mistakes in guessing, but I think it's Canada via Greece, or Greece via Canada, with some London thrown in. So tell me a little bit about your backstory and where that kind of drive for the right kind of healthy, reframed success comes from.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm first generation Greek, born and raised in Montreal. So proud Canadian, proud Greek, and proud Londoner. I've lived in London for 20 years. So a lot of it for me comes my upbringing. Like so many of us were shaped by it. My father tells a great story. He grew up. He was born in a farming village in Greece, and his entire family are essentially just work on the farm. And that's not what he wanted to do. So at 13, he left his village, went to Athens because an uncle had a corner shop and was looking for a young student to help. And so he put his hand up, and he tells a story where he was wearing mismatched shoes. He didn't have a belt to hold up his trousers and so on. And, he lived with my uncle from the age of 13, and he worked, educated, worked through university, moved to Canada, and he's always been such a great role model. He's always been really positive, really kind to people around him, really hardworking, and such a great demonstration that actually not only was he ambitious for himself, but something bigger. He wanted to do something bigger in his life, and he kind of got in touch with, I guess, a fire inside his belly, and he probably doesn't realize that now, but that's something was telling him he wanted to do more. And I think that's where it comes from. My mom is equally ambitious. She's an entrepreneur and has had various businesses, runs a dry cleaning business now in Montreal successfully with her sister, and is just constantly wanting to. I think what they've taught me is you have one life. You have to really lean into it and just do the best that you can. Does that answer the question?
Sort of, yeah. No, totally it does. I mean, they modeled something, right?
Yeah.
Which is foundational, but it's often more than that, isn't it? They modeled something, but they also, if you're going to put something into a culture of an individual, it's something about modeling and managing messaging. What messages did they give you that put that fire in your belly that said, that for you, rather than some other people who didn't embrace ambition as a good thing, that you understood, I've got to go after these things in my life?
So very quickly, I understood, because I saw them work hard, that I am responsible for my life. That it's my story to write very, very early.
That's
at 18, good. And when I turned 18 and one day I moved out of the house, I was like, right, I'm going to go off on my own. I don't need your help. I'm going to do it. And it was, I paid for my education. My dad's like, if you want to go to uni, you're going to have to work for it. And so that instilled the message that it's all up to me. So it's my choice what I want to do with my life. It's my story to write. And that was, when I look back, that's the first lesson that they taught me. That's the first message. And it's interesting because when you reflect and you look back, they probably didn't do it intentionally, but but that message has really resonated with throughout my life, and maybe when, my dad, when they said, you have to pay for uni if you want to study and be successful, then you're going to pay for your own school, your own education. So all of that adds up, right? And says, okay, well, I'm responsible. So what kind of life do I want to have? What story do I want to tell?
That's amazing.
My dad, when I asked him this question, he said, well, when he looks back, he wants to be able to tell a story that's really positive. So that's like, he wants to look back and say, this is a story I'm telling about my life, right? I've raised 3 great girls. I've been married to my mom for like over 50 years. And all of that just shapes, my direction. Yeah.
So it takes responsibility. This is my life. I get one life. I get to go after it. But it also takes discipline. One of the things that, as I coach a number of people, I recognize that there's nobody that I respect as a leader that is accidental in their daily routines, accidental in the way they show up. They have discipline, which creates habit, which creates lifestyle. So what's a normal day for Viv, the one that takes responsibility, the one that leads this incredible organization? How does your day start? How does it close? Do you have cadences, rhythms, patterns?
First, I 100% believe in discipline and consistency is the key, right? And so I do have patterns. I don't stick to them all the time, but I stick to them most of the time. I've been a little bit off them the last few weeks leading up to the holidays. But I'm an early riser. That's really important to me. I need my time on my own. I will wake up and reflect and think about my day, what I want to achieve. That usually means taking the dog out for a quick walk. And then,
what kind of dog have you got?
I've got a little Cavapoo. He's quite a yapper, actually. He does bark a lot. None of my friends like him. He's so cute.
None of my friends like
None of my
dog.
Friends. I was out with some friends last night. And I said, "Gosh, your dog just barks so much." I said, "Can you look after him over the holidays?" Like, no way.
No.
No one wants to look after him.
Oh dear.
But I love him. So I'll take him for a walk. I'll listen to something, usually music in the morning rather than a podcast. And then I listen to a podcast on my commute in, but I'll listen to some music, and I find that's a really nice way to just start my day. I'm a big fan of like exercise. So I do exercise. I make time to exercise. And then the rest of my day when I come in is a combination of people, spending time with my team, looking at strategy, planning for the week. I tend to go to a lot of events. And so I have a routine. I don't go to more than 3 nights. I'm not out more than 3 nights a week because I think otherwise that just sends me off balance. So I try to put some boundaries in terms of how much time I spend with family versus events. I reflect and write a lot. I'm a big, I write, usually on Sunday, what are the 3 things I have to do next week? If everything goes wrong, what are the 3 things I need to do? And then my evening is a good routine. So I really, an hour before I go to sleep, I'll do some reading. I'll just make sure I'm not in front of any electronics most of the time, not all the time, but quite often I need that time to decompress. And then I do some like well-being lead masks and things like that help me calm down.
Brilliant. I love that. I'll ask you a little bit about what you're reading a little bit later, but let's talk about bravery and courage, because I see you as a courageous person. In fact, in the industry that you're in and the job that you have right now, you've got to push out and you've got to be brave. Do you ever get imposter syndrome? Do you ever feel like, oh my goodness me, I'm in a room, I don't know what to do, if they find out that I don't understand? Did you ever experience that? And if you do, what do you do about it? How do you kind of bring yourself back and deal with the situation?
Yeah, I think like everyone, like imposter syndrome is like confidence crisis, right?
Yeah,
I think
totally.
I do experience it, and I think everyone has crises in their confidence. It goes up and down depending on what's happening. And so, yes, I have. And for me, the way, I make sure I have a good network of people around me that I can turn to. And I think that, that makes me feel like I'm not alone. Quite often, when I speak to peers or I have my own board of directors, and connect with them, get advice from people I trust and have dealt with certain situations. So I go to people around me. I get the support. I'm very good at asking for help and support. So I think I have a high level of self-awareness when I'm having a crisis in confidence or anything like that. And then I also, something that I do is I have like an evidence bank. I don't have it with me actually, but it's a book that I write down just things that I've achieved and I've accomplished. I try to go in at like once every other week, but I've been doing this for a really, really long time. And anytime I feel like there's a confidence crisis or imposter syndrome, then I go back to that book.
That's brilliant. I mean, this is, guys, if you're listening, well, of course you're listening to this, but as you listen to this, take a note of that, because here's the reality. The brain is like Velcro to negativity and like Teflon to positivity. And so the way we're wired, because of the fight, flight, freeze thing, the way we're wired is to look for negatives, look for fear, look for danger. And therefore, when someone says something positive to us, it gets so blown out of the water by all the negative things that are happening in our life, and our brain latches onto it. So an evidence book or an evidence vault to be able to say, these are the things people really think about me. This is the thing I did that I succeeded in. I collect emails of people who like me, because I get emails from people who don't like me. And that kind of destroys my life if I spend my life looking at those things. So
that's a great idea, actually.
Get yourself an evidence bank and then go look at it on often, not to blow your own trumpet, but because your trumpet gets destroyed by everyone else's negativity and the way your brain is. So listen to that. Okay, Viv, I want to read another quote from your article because I thought it was great. This is about kindness, I think, and about connection. The central problem is not ambition itself. It's the lack of balance between our drive to achieve individually and our sense of social connection and interdependence with others. Redefined ambition balances individual and collective goods. Now that's brilliant, and maybe one of the conversations we're going to have in the future is about when you write your book. This is excellent. You emphasize that ambition must be balanced with social connection. So how do you foster and play with that in the AllBright world? How do you foster a culture of collective success, of community ambition, and of people moving forward together?
So I'll talk about it about my team first and how I foster that as a leader. So I think for me, it's about making sure that everyone is buying into that collective vision of AllBright. My team really understand what we want to achieve and why we want to achieve it, and really over communicate like what that vision is. And I think that's really important. And and now we're integrating two companies, and we're doing a culture piece and a values piece, and that has to come from everybody, not just from the top down.
Yeah,
so and so they have to be part of that journey. So I've really, over the last 3 years at AllBright, I've really made sure that the team plays a role in that ambition and that journey, what that looks like, so they feel they're personally invested in it. It's about creating opportunities for all of them to grow as well, and I think that's really important for all of them to shine. And it's also the energy that I give and how I show up for work, and I think that's that energy is contagious, as you said, right? Those positive feedback and all that's contagious. If I'm really aware of that energy that I give out in the workplace. And then when it comes to our community, it's a bit of magic and a bit of logic, I think. Logic.
I like that. Magic and logic.
Magic and logic is the best way I describe what we do. Logic is the way we really understand what are women looking for, what the challenges are facing, how we can solve a problem that they've got. And that's the logic. We curate the content, the program, the leadership and development programs that really help solve a problem. And the magic is a combination of just bringing the right people in the room, creating a community that is authentic. And I know that's a really overused word, but I think if we're talking about kindness, when you're doing things with the right purpose, the right values, you attract that right energy, around you. So our community is the most amazing community of women and men that are really committed to what we're doing. And when we get them all together, that's when the magic, I wish I can bottle up that feeling, because that's where the magic comes through. And we put them before us. And I think, when you're building connections, whether you're networking or building connections, my approach is always to put others before what I need, and helping them rise, helping them succeed, and as a result, then my team and I succeed, right? So we really focus on what does our community need in order to succeed and thrive.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a conversation I'm always having, and always a question I'm always asking with people that I coach. Who's the star? Who's the hero? If you're the star and you're the hero, other people end up being the minions. But if you're the one serving other people's hero journey, and if everyone's doing it, it's like contagious. It becomes cultural. Like we're here to serve other people's stuff. And then, of course, everyone becomes the hero. So that's massive. And talk to me a little bit about trust. One of the things that that I talk a lot about is the fact that you can measure trust, that it's not just this enigmatic concept and idea that you either have it or don't have it. It's equally not binary. It's about, how do I trust you? How do you go about building trust, particularly in this moment when you've got two organizations coming together and things growing and in a climate which is not always conducive to the kind of growth that we want? How do you build trust in your teams?
Yeah, I mean, trust is everything. And gosh, we've gone through a lot of our challenges when we restructured the business a couple of years ago, now acquiring a business. So trust comes from transparency, I think, consistency of behaviors as well. And so I feel like I'm a really trusted leader wherever I've been, throughout my career, because I'm honest and I'm transparent and I'm kind. It doesn't mean that I'm not tough or hard on the problems, but I'm just very transparent about where we are as a business, what we're trying to achieve, and I update people regularly. And I'm consistent in how I show up. I'm consistent in my behaviors with my management team, regardless of where you are in the business. I'm very consistent in my behaviors and how I show up. And I think over time, what happens, that builds that trust, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not one, I think there's some leaders who I've seen will be amazing, in the boardroom one day and then completely different the next day. That erodes trust, right?
Yeah,
so for me, that consistency of how I show up, the consistency of my behaviors is really, really important. And that's what builds trust. And I think having that visibility. I also, something that I'm a big fan of is I encourage my team to take risks. And I want them to, I'm always testing things in the background, and only 5% will work out, and that's okay. I just tell them, encourage this environment of failing and trying things and failing, learning, adapting, and all of that. And I think that builds trust, and that allows people to be themselves and then innovate.
That's brilliant. Let me help by underlining consistent behaviors, because I think sometimes we miss that. Culture is built with consistent standards and consistent behaviors. Your brand at AllBright and your personal brand, Viv, is not what your branding agency tells you it is, or even what you decide it's going to be. It's the conversation that happens when you leave the room. It's what people say about you. It's the gossip on the street about you. And that is always the overflow of your beliefs, your core beliefs, the things you die on a hill for, worked out and lived out in your behaviors and your standards, and you doing it consistently. So I always stop and speak. I always do this on this time. I always show up correctly. I always look smart. And over time, people catch that. They catch that these are the things that are celebrated. These are the things that are not tolerated. These are the stories that are always told, and it creates the kind of culture that you want. That's awesome.
There's something very subtle, but I've done in the last 15 years of leadership is every time I have a new starter, I take them for coffee individually. Right? And I just, and they start telling me about their skills in business. I'm like, oh, no, this is not what it's about. I'm like, just tell me about you. No matter how junior the staff is, I will always sit and take them for coffee. And that is how I build trust with every single person where I am, right? And I ask them about them, where they grow up, do they have siblings, are they married, all of that. And it's so interesting to see them dive into business straight away. And I'm like, it's not about business. I just want to know you. And I think people fundamentally want to be seen and heard. And,
Yes.
you need to
Yes.
build that relationship with others. And when you do, then you build that trust, and you have to just be consistent.
And yeah, absolutely. Because so many people make this mistake that they think that the way to build a great culture in an organization, or the way to build a great organization, is to have great vision at the boardroom table. That's true, right? But most people succeed at that. The where they don't succeed is the alignment through the whole organization. So you going and having coffee, or you stopping at someone's desk, or you saying hi to someone and asking them how the weekend went, that builds culture even better than you having a passionate pitch at the boardroom table, because it's the mid-level management and down through the organization where it all gets lost, it all gets diffused, and you end up leading something that you didn't even intend. So I think it's fantastic.
I mean, a great example, last week we had a team afternoon to proactively build our culture before, we've just merged two companies, but quite often we wait till later to build the culture. And I just think you have to be on the front foot of culture. You have to really be intentional about it. And the team loved it. It was a very, it was a relaxed afternoon. It wasn't too, it wasn't very, there was no PowerPoint or anything like that. It was just different.
Praise the Lord, no PowerPoint.
Yes.
Can't stand it.
But it's just being really intentional and building culture at the beginning rather than later down the line when things aren't working, right? Because I need, delivering the business objectives and success is so much down to my team and the people I have around me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's talk curiosity, because I know that you're a reader. I know that you're a thinker. What are you thinking about big right now? What's challenging you? What are you even slightly afraid of coming down the track? What are you reading? What's blowing your mind?
Yeah, I read a lot. I mean, my brain's always thinking. I'm really thinking a lot about AI at the moment, and how do I use AI for good? How do I get to know AI? How do I use it to make my life more efficient? What does it mean for my business now? What does it mean for the future? I read a lot about AI. I'm actually just testing a new AI app that organizes, I think you need this, Karl, your inbox, and it categorizes it. And
wow, that was pointed. I think you need this, Karl.
We've talked about inbox management, because we have so many emails, right? But it literally puts your emails in a folder of to respond, just an FYI, and it just organize, which is fantastic. It's completely transformed my life. And then just thinking about what does AI work look like in the future of work, right? Because that's the space that I'm in. So I'm really curious about that. And then I'm reading the book called The Empire of Pain. So completely different sector to I'm in, but it's about the pharmaceutical industry. And so so I get very curious about, I'm seeing a trend here around my friends using weight loss drugs and, to really accelerate weight loss. And I'm fascinated by why and how, and the psychology behind it and all of that. So I do get into these, weird, academic kind of rabbit holes. And I start to read as much as I can about a specific topic, because there's always a truth that I'm trying to pull out of it. So there'll be an article about why this is a trend coming soon, as soon as I finish the book. So I'm, it's just things that I hear about. And I think I'm tying it back to that instant gratification, quick results, pressure people have to feel a certain way. And I'm just curious.
So help me out. I'm one of the challenges I'm giving people this year is to read at least 12 books, one book a month, and then find people to talk about it and discuss, and I'll read them with them. So what's your tip? What top tip book that people should read in 2025 that's really piqued your interest and challenged you to think, well?
I've loved a book I always recommend from a business point of view is Working Backwards, which is, I don't remember the name of the author, but it's how Amazon works on the inside. So it's everything about how Amazon functions. And I loved it because I learned so much about their customer focus, and it was just so interesting, and their culture, what worked, what didn't work. So I thought it was a really great read. I like to read business books. So I thought that was a really, really good read. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put that on the list. So let's talk about women in leadership. You shared some statistics about leadership roles, which are pretty sobering. Only 24 women are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Less than 10% of FTSE 100 companies are female CEOs. Women make up less than 30% of political and business leaders globally, which is devastating kind of statistics. What practical steps can men and women take to close that gap and create something that's more equitable?
So first, I'm a big believer in sponsorship. So men and female leaders need to sponsor others, not mentor, but sponsor, and having like formal sponsorship
tell me the
programs.
Tell me the difference between the two.
So for me, mentorships, I've had both. I constantly have mentors that come in and out of my life, and that's really just checking and getting some advice once in a while. But sponsorship is really backing a person and, giving them visibility, giving them recognition, recommending them, and just really sponsoring their journey within a company. So I think having sponsorship programs, these, whether, I was part of like a Rising Star program in one of my previous, like early in my career, where I had, the company president was my sponsor, which was great for me. And he really helped my journey and really backed me and supported me. And it was more structured, and it was more around making sure that I'm in the room. He was mentioning my name when I wasn't in the room and helped me move up and sponsored my leadership journey. So it's more I think it's more actively leaning into helping somebody move up and really lifting that other person with you. I think it's when it comes to men, I think it's also challenging those biases and behaviors they see in the workplace and speaking up. We talk a lot about male allyship. And for me, what that really means is, when you're spotting that behavior, when you see that behavior that isn't right, knowing what, like speaking up for, women in the room. And I think that's really important.
Talk about some of those behaviors.
I've been in rooms with a lot of men where, I'm getting cut off, where they don't let me finish a thought, or they use language that's not appropriate. And actually, I was once last year, I was at an event, and someone asked me what I did, and he was like, "Well, I don't think we need to be supporting women in the workplace. I don't think we need," like completely opposite, and which is, I listened, and then I responded. But he was, his colleagues were next to him, and he was getting a bit aggressive, and they didn't say anything. And then the next day they sent me an email to apologize. And I said, that's all very well and good, but you were there, you should have spoken up, right? And I said, that's what male allyship is, to speak up in that moment. So I think it's when, and sometimes, I was fundraising, I don't know if I told you this, but when I was fundraising for the acquisition, I had somebody, I was going through a fundraising pitch, kept calling me darling, and I had to stop and say, look, please call me Viviane. That's my name. And I did it in a very, I wasn't confrontational, but it's just calling that behavior out. And I think I really need to do it, because otherwise, that's what I do, right? That's, and I feel...
He called you darling?
Twice, yeah. And actually, when I called him, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm a, 70-year-old
I'm sorry, love.
white man, and I was, gosh. Anyway, so I think challenging the biases, creating flexibility, and I think that's really important for women in the workplace. I think, one, it's important for women to be visible in the workplace, and then how do you create that right structure where there's enough flexibility as well? So I think those are, and addressing some of the barriers, I personally think targets in terms of leadership are good, but, I know that's a very controversial topic, but I think having targets sets the goal in terms of wanting to have like a diverse leadership team.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about AllBright and its mission to inspire and empower women and create safe spaces for interesting and dangerous conversations. What are you most excited about in this next chapter? What are you going after? What do you dream of for AllBright?
Yeah, so post our integration phase, it's really about global expansion. So through our acquisition of Every Woman, it gives us a global footprint and a lot of expertise in leadership and development, because they've been doing it for 25 years. So they know a lot more around this space than we have historically, right? Because we're a younger company. So for me, it's making sure I bring together, realize the value of that, and then look at global expansion. which is really important to us. We've got clients in Canada, in the US, Middle East, Asia. So it's thinking about how do we expand and get more corporates, into our ecosystem, and then just grow all our events. We have 3 or 4 really big events around the year. We're taking one of them to New York and then to the Middle East later this year. So I think it's, that expansion, both from a learning point of view and also an events point of view, is important. We have a really aggressive goal to reach 20 million women by 2028. So we're at 8 million women. So together with the team, we're always thinking about how do we get more women into our ecosystem.
Wow, that's great. So one of the things that I always ask people I interview is, where does all this stuff come from you? You're a courageous leader, you're an integrous leader, you're a curious leader, you're a kind leader. I have this thing that life and leadership is significantly more than just the senses, than touch, feel, smell, all that stuff. That there's something deeper. Where does it all come from you? What's the root of your leadership drive?
Gosh, such a good question. That's the soul question.
Yeah, it is. That's the soul question.
Where does it come from? I think for me, it comes from, the life that I want to live, right? The legacy that I want to leave. I've got 2 boys. I work in a female-dominated space. I've got 2 young boys. And it's, how do I want them to show up in the future? What do I want to, what story do I want to tell when I'm looking back on my life? So I think that's what drives me. I think that's what it comes from. Yeah.
And final thought and final question. If you were a famous baseball star or hockey star or football star or Taylor Swift, what's your walk-on music? What tune precedes you whenever you walk into any boardroom or any event? What's your walk-on music?
Great question. God, I would have to say I absolutely, and it's my karaoke question, my karaoke song as well. I absolutely love Queen's "We Are the Champion." So that's what I start with I'm a big karaoke fan, and when I take my team, we always start to sing that song together.
And am I ever going to get a chance to be in that karaoke bar?
Oh my God,
with you?
anytime. I think
I have got some tunes.
Yeah. I'm a terrible singer, but when my team gets stressed, I take them to the karaoke box next door and I'm like, right, we're going to go sing. Because I think people need to laugh and just let go, right? And we don't do that enough.
Do you sing pre-alcohol or post-alcohol?
Pre. Yeah, believe it or not.
Well, there you go. Excellent.
I have too much energy, so it's pre-alcohol.
Viv, thank you so much for being so honest, and thank you for the leadership that you bring. Thank you for the vision that you have. And it's been an honor just to know you, but also to talk with you today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You've been watching The Arable Leader with Karl Martin. Subscribe for more episodes with great leaders. And you can also listen to The Arable Leader wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources for leading in a healthy way, visit arableco.com and check out Karl's new book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire.